legacy.
Welcome to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Today's show is powered by Zbooni. The Zbooni app gives businesses free tools to start and run and grow online, accept payments, build an e-store, and create mobile invoices in minutes. While the interview is brought to you by Zbooni, the guests and the stories told are their own. The special guest today is Doran Davies, the CEO of Bounce UAE, a very popular and colorful destination that many people will have experienced. Since moving to Dubai in 2012, Doran has held the position of Director of Products, Operations, and Global Sales at HTC across Europe and MENA. Before leaving the telco sector in 2013 to set up Bounce. Working with Bounce Australia, UAE teams, the first Bounce venue will opened in UAE in Al Quoz in 2014. And we'll hear a lot more about how that came about. So good morning, Doran.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you? For those listening on the podcast, they won't see your very colourful background in Bounce. Is that where you are now?
Yeah. We have our office located in the Al Quoz venue, which is the industrial area of Dubai, but we like to make it colourful. Hence the backdrop and all the colourful trampolines and padding that we have in the venue. But I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
And I see a couple of awards back there behind you as well. So
strategically placed.
For all these Zoom calls that we're having these days.
Yeah, that's right.
Why not?
That's right.
Why not? So what is Bounce for those who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, great question. So I kind of put Bounce in the bucket of sports and entertainment. Think about a big warehouse, a big building that's full of trampolines, circus grade padding, ninja warrior courses, and a lot of energy and a lot of inspiring people to fill it.
Interesting. It's an adventure and trampoline park, but you have 32 venues across 16 countries. How did it come about? Was it something that you saw in another market, or was it developed here?
Yeah. No, great question. Look, the story goes back to 2013. This was a business that I never intended to start up. Never even thought about the kind of trampoline concept, the sports entertainment industry. My background is in the technology sector. I was in the mobile phone business for 13 years, whether it's based in Europe or it was actually the catalyst that brought me over into the Middle East back in 2012. And it was probably one of those cases of right time, right place. You've got to have a little bit of luck sometimes in life. That happened in 2013. I was friends with a Australian guy called Ross, who is now my business partner, and over a barbecue at my house in some very hot summer's day, he took his phone out of his pocket and showed me this video of a place called Bounce that was based in Australia. And then, the video was pretty inspiring. Lots of people flying around doing some amazing tricks, and most importantly, a lot of smiles on people's faces. And then he put it on me. He said, "I'm going to do it. Do you want to do it with me?" And it was as simple as that, really.
Wow. So you left. So yeah, you were in the telco space and you jumped into this. Yeah. Did you want to be an entrepreneur? Had you inkling during your corporate career, should I say?
Yeah. It's a funny one. I think you always start off in the world of work with ambition, energy, appetite to achieve. It's just how you do that. Whether you do that in an existing corporate structure, an existing business, or you go your own path. And for me, I got into the telecoms industry. And it was another probably a chance encounter, really. It was me bumping into a friend of mine that I went to school with in a bar in Swansea, which is my hometown. And he created this amazing story and told me this amazing story about a startup mobile phone manufacturer that was based out of a few temporary buildings in a car park. Wow. in a very how can I describe a very interesting part of Birmingham. It's probably the political way to describe it. And that's what kind of started my career in mobile phones. The conversation went from there. I went up to Birmingham to have a look around, and I was bitten by the bug of being in a startup environment. I love the energy in a startup. I love the types of people it attracts. You've got that mentality of rolling your sleeves up and getting involved. It's not a situation where you have a job description and you just go bullet point by bullet point. It's you're in at the deep end, single swim, and I really thrived in that environment, and that's what gave me the confidence really to take the plunge and go my own way and start up a business over here.
Interesting. But even with that sort of starting point of that thirst, say, as you described, for entrepreneurship or being enterprising, you still for want of a better phrase, towed the line and improved your career and a global operator sales for HTC across Europe is quite a big role.
Yes.
Did you kind of put a lot of your energy into kind of career development and growing and progressing within a large organization as well?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a firm believer in the ethos around grabbing as much as possible. I think experience and learning in the right environment is gold dust, really. And while I had no previous experience in the sports entertainment industry, I think what being in a corporate environment for many years, whether in a startup or a more established brand, it really teaches you to think through problems.
Interesting.
And it also teaches you that you're not Superman, right? You don't have all the answers. That was very clear when Ross and I started up Bounce. You turn into architects, salespeople, people and culture professionals, and everything in between and underneath. And I took a lot of advice and help from other people in the industry, friends, colleagues that I'd worked with in the past. And I think having that that background in bigger businesses gives you the confidence to be able to do that. To understand your own kind of blind spots and weak areas, and not necessarily see that as a negative, because you can find a way. You can always find a way, and that kind of has stayed with me ever since, really, and it has been quite formative on my career.
Interesting. Yeah, sorry to labor on the contrast between your previous career and this, because it's quite stark. But just to draw an analogy of, you were also involved in products. Like from the outside, the telco industry seems rather complex. It seems vast. It seems quite difficult entry point. And I was randomly Googling the cost of 5G licenses in the region recently. And even if you can buy in, like, you need $200 million, so that type of stuff. At least. But in some countries, but like, for example, do you think that obviously in a startup, you have to do everything in a way, but even still, is the telco industry more complex than the sports entertainment industry? I'm not saying is the sports entertainment industry easy, but is it less complex, or what's your experience been?
Yeah, I guess when you take the helicopter view, of course, the assessment would be, sports entertainment is a very simplistic sector and industry compared to the mobile phone space. When you're talking, about my days in whether it's HTC or Samsung, you are dealing with cutting edge technologies. Bit of a mouthful. So, you can make it as complex or as simple as you can. And certainly over the years in the mobile phone industry, things have changed quite rapidly. You've gone from a scenario perhaps 15, 20 years ago where you would talk about a mobile phone in the context of very complex functions or very whiz-bang features. You'd quote processor speeds, how many cores an application processor has. That has vastly changed now, and it's almost pivoted across to dumbing down the technology and focusing on simplicity of use. And I think there's something beautifully elegant within that. And, Apple were very much the catalyst and precursor for that, very much focusing on taking what is a very complex piece of equipment and simplifying it down so it's a delight as opposed to a frustration to use. But when you get under the hood of a mobile phone, there's no doubt, it takes some serious brain power to design one of these things. Where I focused my efforts was more around those use cases and what problems are we trying to solve with this technology. And that's not an easy thing to do. It might sound simple, but it's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to do. You have that dynamic where the engineering teams are always trying to push the envelope, use the latest and greatest technology, and think that that's what consumers want. When ultimately consumers have probably a pretty simple set of problems that need to be solved. Battery life is one example of that. You rarely hear mobile phone companies talking in the context of milliamp hours in battery capacities. They talk in the context of all-day use, because that is important to a consumer. They want to know that, when they get up in the morning and they leave the house, the battery is going to be alive and the phone is going to be usable for the rest of the day. A consumer will find it very, very difficult to reconcile that with 800 milliamp hours. What does that mean? I think the industry has gone through quite an evolution, or I wouldn't say evolution, a revolution, really. In terms of simplifying these things down, focusing on problems that need to be solved, and the sector has changed dramatically over time as well. Since I've been involved, you had that scenario where the power was with the mobile phone manufacturers for a period of time. So people bought the mobile phone brand. Then it switched to the network operators starting to gain a lot of foothold and talk about their propositions, their applications, their services. So the balance of power shifted to the network operators. Then the balance of power shifted to the guys like Google and Apple, who really speak very passionately around the operating system, simplicity of use, and the application ecosystem around it. So it's very interesting when you kind of chart that journey.
Yeah, definitely. It's a fascinating industry, and perhaps we can talk in more detail about it and as well in the future. But segueing into you were shown Bounds on a mobile phone at a barbecue by your business partner, and from that moment to when the first person bounced around at the venue, what was the kind of hurdles that you went through, or what was the kind of planning phase, and how did you get it set up?
I mean, there were many, frankly, and I look back at that period of time, and it's certainly given me grey hairs. I'm a lot older now, but a lot more experienced, a lot more confident as well. I mean, it really was that A to Z approach, and starting a business over here is there is not that scenario where you would go to a website that gives you a step 1, 2, 3 on how to set up an entity. It just doesn't exist here. You have to figure it out as you go along. There are various companies that provide that service to you, but I felt strongly that we should learn how to do that, because our ambition was not just open up one venue in Alcoz and sit back and relax. It was to grow a big business across the region. So understanding how corporate structures are put together, how you apply for a trade license, how you gain approvals on a construction project was very important for us, because we learn it once and we do it again in the future. But very much from A to Z. And the starting point was doing almost the due diligence, right? You have to have a business plan. You have to understand the economics of the business to see whether it works. The great thing about Bounce was that it was an existing business in Australia. The home of Bounce is Melbourne, Australia, and that started up in 2012 by a bunch of guys who are, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs in Australia. So, they had teased out, the business model. They had made the mistakes. They had codified the business and what success would look like. So, taking that franchise approach is a much easier way to set up your own business and start your own business, because you're effectively licensing in that knowledge and experience. Notwithstanding, the local intricacies of setting up a business and operating a business in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. But the kind of due diligence phase was number one. It's that kind of number crunching, if you like. Does it make sense? Are we going to be able to pay people salaries with this business concept? And then there was we did do market research as well. It wasn't that kind of formalistic approach where we would go to an agency and, brief them on what we wanted to achieve. It was me going to, the ranches mall and grabbing teenagers and mums and asking what they thought about the concept and trying to tease out what price points we could achieve with this. So we went through that kind of market research in a bit of a scrappy way, I'd say, but it was important to give us confidence and reassurance that while the model works in a place like Australia, it can work in the UAE. And then things flowed from there. So things like finding a property, sounds easy, but that's half the game in my business. Finding the right property. I need a venue that's got lots of height. I need a venue that doesn't have many columns in the middle, and I need good locations that people are prepared to visit on a regular basis. And then from there, it's the formalities around company setup, which is a process in itself. Then you go through the architectural design. You go through the whole process with finding contractors. Negotiating terms, negotiating prices, and there were some pretty eye-opening moments. And I remember one where I was sitting in Dragon Mart, me and Ross, and we were looking at some of these quotes coming back from contractors that we just couldn't afford, and we were thinking, well, what the hell do we do now? And it was that time where it was just, well, okay, let's just take a time, let's just relax a little bit, let's just chew the fat on some other subjects. We will make this happen. Let's not get too stressed about it, because we have the skill set and we have the ambition to drive it through. But there is nothing like putting your own life savings into a project to focus the mind. When you think about your family in the future and what you want to provide for your family in the future, you make it happen. You make it happen.
Fascinating. Nice anecdote there in terms of not stressing out, and going back to what you mentioned earlier about problem solving in your previous career, that that's what you face at every step of the way, and doing it. Just sticking on the kind of business rationale as well, I think what people can relate to, and maybe other people can relate in the sports entertainment business, but in terms of franchise for restaurants, you can see how someone would take a brand that's well known and that they can scale it across a country or a region and just stick to that one brand and stick to that franchise model because it's been proven out. Is that what you had in mind for Bounce, that you thought, we can make this work? They've made it work, and we can make this work.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, like I was saying before, I would recommend if people are looking to start up their own business, the franchise approach is a much easier pathway to do that. With the franchise approach, you do need to recognize, understand, and also be okay with the fact that there is always that royalty stream that goes back to the brand owner. That's an important thing that you need to get over in your mind. You've got that balance between learning from experience, existing systems, processes that you're inheriting. There's a cost to that. I went into this with very much the target to roll this out quickly. I understood the value of first mover advantage in the markets, but I also understood that a trampoline is a 300-year-old piece of equipment. It's not something that you can slap a patent on. So speed and pace of rollout was very, very important. But this is all a learning exercise for me. You hear the adage, every day is a school day, and it's very, very true. So, using that knowledge and experience to then grow into other segments was the way I looked at it as well. So, even now we're cooking up new concepts. We've always have lots of ideas. We're never short of ideas in this business, and having the foundations of a bounce or a zero latency, which is another line of business that I have as well, really helps you get prepared to build for next phases and next steps.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. I was interesting that you brought that up. I was kind of hoping you'd explain it like that, because I think, then the sports entertainment knowledge becomes something that you can scale, that you can leverage, horizontally, and you can kind of go, and equally the market approach. But specifically on Bounce, did you move into a new market, and what was the decision on that, or did you pick a new location in the UAE?
Yeah, no, great question. Dubai Al Quoz was the very first venue, and then strategically, we wanted to roll out quickly, and we wanted to establish bounce venues I describe them as the key beachhead locations in the region. Now, UAE is, it's a great place to roll out because you're never more than a couple of hours drive away from the major cities. So, building up a team in the UAE to service those locations makes a lot of sense in terms of that first phase of rollout. You learn a lot about the market, you learn a lot about the consumer, you're building up your brand presence in the market. So there's a lot of synergies to be achieved there. So while Al Quoz was the first venue, then we quickly shifted our focus to Abu Dhabi. Actually, I was looking at property in Abu Dhabi before we found the Al Quoz property. It was just a race to the finish line, really. It could have been Abu Dhabi first as opposed to Al Quoz. But Abu Dhabi was the next location, and was the first location that we built inside a shopping mall. And that's when we really kind of understood our ability to generate significant footfall, whether that's in a standalone location in an industrial area in Dubai, or whether it's within a shopping mall environment. So Abu Dhabi was the kind of next on the list, and that's what we opened next. We actually opened a Marina Mall in Abu Dhabi in an area of the mall that was built to house an indoor ski slope.
Wow.
That location was designed and built to be a ski slope. So you can imagine it's difficult to, retrofit or change that space to something else. It's a ski slope. It had an 88-meter long slope in there. So what do you do with that space? All of our venues are kind of custom designed. So we took on the challenge and did that. Then after that, it was Al Ain. We had a great opportunity in Al Ain, and we certainly see and understand the dynamics in that market to make it really a viable option for us. And then it was about, okay, what do we do next? There's only so many big box sports entertainment concepts that you can, or big box sports entertainment bounce concepts that you can build in the UAE. Then we have to go international. And so those two markets that were a priority for us as next step were Qatar and also Saudi Arabia. Qatar we wanted to get into quickly because we knew that there were no comparable offerings over there, so we would have that first mover advantage. And Saudi Arabia, because just weight of population and availability of sports entertainment in KSA is very much in its infancy there, and that's what we did. So, we opened in Doha at the back end of 2017, and then Jeddah as well, 2017, and then in Riyadh at the back end of 2018. And in Riyadh, while we didn't have first mover advantage in that market, we decided to do something a little bit different, which was to open up a ladies only bounce venue in Riyadh. So we effectively create that first to market opportunity because of that.
Wow, fascinating, speedy rollout. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and listen to Doran and bring us up to present day. And we'll stop for a quick break to remind you that this episode is powered by Zbooni. As mentioned at the start of this episode, Dubai Works is powered by Zbooni. Be More Keto is a popular meal plan that focuses purely on a ketogenic diet. Using Zbooni, Be More Keto discusses with each customer in order to plan their ideal meal plan rollout. When the plan is curated and agreed, Be More Keto leverages Zbooni in order to secure payment. Zbooni also plays a key role in managing the customer database overall and securing monthly renewals. And we're back. So, Doran, you brought us up to the end of 2018. You've, over 5 years, you've brought a new brand to the region. You've scaled it out to 3 locations in the UAE, 2 in Saudi Arabia, 1 in Qatar. How was business at that time?
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, the concept that we have is so elegantly simple that it's just mass market. No prior skills required to jump up and down. It takes you back to those days when you're a kid and you jump up and down on your bed. It really is like that. So, the fact that it's a very simple to understand concept and very simple to use means that it's been massively successful. I couldn't be happier with the results that we've achieved.
Is it like, we talked off air at the start, it's kind of open to all ages. Is it like an entry fee? Do you have different packages, or how accessible? How much do I need to know about the prices or the duration, or can I just show up at one of your locations and take it from there?
Yeah, 100%. We've got a few options. Broadly, you can walk in. So you're passing on the street and you want to have a jump around with us. You can walk in. We also have a website where you can book online. It's bounce.ae. And back in 2014, I think we were one of the very, very first in the entertainment sector to offer online bookings. And then we also have a contact center. So we've got some pretty special guys and girls manning the phones just in the office behind me who are happy to take bookings and give information and advice over a phone call as well. So a few options available to customers.
Interesting. And just talking again about the structure of the business and the margins in terms of, do you have to get investment to fit out these big buildings? You've got staff costs, you've got technical costs and things like that. Is for people to understand, is it something that pays off over time, or can you make it profitable, once the business is coming in?
Yeah. Well, it's I wouldn't be in this business if it wasn't a profitable business. Of course, there needs to be a return, especially when you put in all your life savings into the business. You need to know that you are going to make that money back and you're going to multiply it up effectively. We've been very fortunate in the sense that the business has performed very, very well because we have a fantastic team in the business, which has meant that the growth that we've experienced over time has been funded by the cash generated by the business. So I'm quite proud of the fact that we're effectively a debt-free company in that sense. And when I look back at 2020, I'm quite thankful of that as well. I think our business is I'd say there are some unique elements to it. There's a relatively high bar to entry. There are some significant outlays to build a bounce venue, whether that's deposits with landlords, whether that's the equipment that you buy, whether it's the contractors that you use to build the place. So it's not something that you can just turn around and, one day and think, right, I'm going to build a bounce the next day. You really need to carefully consider it, because it's not a cheap thing to do, and it's not a cheap thing to do very, very well. But over time, the business has grown because we've done, and I can't put it down to me. Obviously, it's it's the team that we hire to do the job as well has done a fantastic effort, to turn this business into, one venue into 10 operating venues across the region.
Amazing success story, and good to hear from starting out in Dubai. So coming up to the dreaded topic of conversation, the global pandemic, and it must have been, as it was for everyone, quite disruptive, kind of almost exactly a year ago now. How did you deal with that sudden shock, and then how did you bounce back? No pun intended.
I think, it kind of, I guess, we're all in this, right? So my story will not be unique, and I certainly empathise with everyone out there that's going through these stresses and strains at the moment. It really is not easy. When I cast my mind back in 2020, it's a combination of a story that I both want to forget and also remember at the same time. There's some really important life lessons here. We saw things starting to change in February last year. We're at the front end of the market. We see customers coming into the venue, and those customers in the venue are the barometer of consumer confidence, right? So in February, we started to see some pretty dramatic slowdowns.
Interesting.
We're kind of seeing things happening over in China, but what does that mean to me? But it was quite clear in February when announcements were made around things like school trips, around preponing the school holidays and kids going back to distance learning after the holidays. We saw massive drops in our footfall and our revenue, and so we were on the front foot. We saw that happening. We didn't just sit back and go into panic mode. We got together and, talked about that situation of the what if, what is the worst case scenario here? And that is venue closures. So, we certainly got our heads together and put down a plan that we would use in the scenario of enforced closures. I'm glad we did that at that time, because the closures came thick and fast. Within the period of 3 days, all of my venues across the region were closed.
Wow.
So having that preparedness and almost that piece of paper that gives you that step 1, 2, 3 on what you do in that scenario just gives you confidence. You're not kind of making it up as you're going along. You've done it in a very well thought through and considered approach. So being prepared was the first element, and then you kind of swing into gear on what's really important is what you do with the team. We call our team the tribe over here at Bounce, and it's you've got that balancing act between long-term business survivability and short midterm. People need to eat, right? So it's kind of that balancing act. So we came up with a set of principles that we would operate by through that closure period, and I'm still operating by those principles now.
Interesting. But then gradually they reopened. Are all your venues reopened now, and have you kind of probably not returned to the level as before? There's probably still sort of things around group trips and things like that. But are you kind of optimistic that it's gradually returning to pre-COVID capacity and things like that?
Yeah, look, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel here. I am expecting 2021 to still be a very rocky road. I'm still expecting there to be a level of uncertainty in the market, and I'm expecting it to take time before consumer confidence is fully restored. I think what we offer in terms of sports entertainment, and specifically our purpose in this sector, which is about inspiring progression and human connection stands the test of time.
Yeah.
We are open in all of our venues across the region except Doha. Doha has been really tough for us. We closed down in March 2020. We opened again on the 11th of January this year, so a very long closure period, but then closed down again on the 4th of February. So if you think about it in those terms, over 12 months, we've only been open for 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
So that's a significant impact. KSA in January experienced another closure as well. That was for a period of around four weeks. Thankfully, UAE venues are remaining open, and I'm really glad that's the case. But the performance-wise, of course, we read articles around population contraction and what's happening in various sectors there. One thing that I'm really proud of. We talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID, but actually we're still in COVID, right? Is our customer experience. We measure our net promoter score, and actually our net promoter score, which is a gauge of customer satisfaction, is higher now than it was pre-COVID. And that's what I'm delighted with, because that is ultimately the long game.
Interesting. Well, obviously people are safe when they go to your venues, but equally it's much better than their home apartments than doing adventure and things like that. So it shows that the appetite will return. And you explained the kind of challenges still with COVID and in the region, but I guess it's great that you are open here in the UAE, and comparing it with maybe your home country, it's probably you probably wouldn't be open yet in Wales.
No.
Yeah, and talking on that point, like Doran, are you still are you still kind of focused on the region? Are you optimistic about this region as an emerging market? Are you excited about the opportunities in the entertainment leisure sector as well?
Yeah, look, 100%. I think the region just oozes opportunity, really. The kind of precursors are there. If you think about, one obvious one, it's a very hot country for a large part of the year. So being able to offer customers opportunities to get active and keep active in an indoor environment will never change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you look at some of those kind of macro indicators, opportunity is there. I look specifically at the sports entertainment sector, and I still believe that there are opportunities to grow into new concepts as well. I think what we're doing is leading the market in a lot of extents, and I still believe that kind of child segment, teenage segment is underserved. It's a large segment of the population. Look at KSA as an example. It really is underserved. I think times have changed from people thinking they're getting a good entertainment experience by going to a more traditional family entertainment center in a mall. You get a lot of that in a home environment. Those electronic games and so on. And I think people want to be part of something more deeper and meaningful. It's not about being glued to a screen. It's about going out there and working up a sweat and getting yourself out of your comfort zone. So, there are still massive growth opportunities in the region for sure.
Interesting. We'll leave it there. Very positive note to finish on. And when you brought that point home about taking us away from the screen, I think I'm going to find an excuse to go down to Bounce. And I'm sure the staff will be welcome that. Really nice speaking to you, Doran.
Right,
thanks for sharing your story, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. This show was powered by Zbuni. Once again, a big thank you to them to help us provide this content to you for free. Also, thank you to our producer, Yana Kalashnikova, editor, Alibaba. Please do check out more Dubai Works episodes and other shows over on smashy.tv. You can follow us on social media and download our app, which is available on iOS, Android, and all good smart TVs. See you next week. and all good smart TVs. See you next week.